Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 11 Top 25 review. A lot of crazy shit happened this week, but without saying too much, like and subscribe, and help and comment. Let's get straight into this thing. All right, don't care. They got destroyed. Expected. Whatever. Miami at Georgia Tech. First, I didn't even wake up early for this game because, quite frankly, the early start to the games were dog shit. So I just didn't really care enough to wake up early. And I knew this one would be better, but it wasn't worth waking up as early as I had to for this. I said Miami would handle it. Maybe it would be like a close first half with them just destroying the second half, but it just wasn't. Just wasn't. Georgia Tech comes out on top. I believe I mentioned Georgia Tech being a different team with Haynes King starting. A big thing to note was for the past two losses for Georgia Tech against Notre Dame and against Virginia Tech, they did not have their starting quarterback in. They didn't have Haynes King in. The only game they really lost pretty bad, they didn't look good in, was against Louisville. They had Haynes King pretty much the whole time. Yeah, they had him the whole time in that game. They kind of just got stomped. The loss against Syracuse was also pretty bad. Haynes King was in that one, but at least, it was a 3-point loss and a road game. But then you look at Notre Dame and you look at Virginia Tech, and honestly, I even kind of fell for this. I kind of forgot how good Georgia Tech is with their starting quarterback. And this seems like, now that I look at it, it was a trap game. It was definitely a trap game. Because in the past couple games, they haven't had their really good starting quarterback. And even though it looks like at a certain point he got taken out of the game, or if he got hurt, I'm not sure. But when he was in the game, he was just impacting it too much. The other quarterback, Aaron Philo, was 5 for 10, 67 yards and a touchdown. So he did what he had to do when he came into the game. But quite frankly, Georgia Tech just punished on the floor. The starting running back had 3 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown, as well as, the wide variety of running backs they used, all tallying on a bunch of yards. Even the other quarterback, not very many yards, but still relatively decent amount. But then you got Haynes King, 20 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown. He runs the ball. And then over the air, Haynes King was 6 for 6, 32 yards, and a touchdown. So when dude was on the field, this team was slamming. And yeah, he was in the fourth quarter, so I'm not sure if he was getting breathers or what was going on. I don't know why he got taken out for the Aaron Philo kid. But when the Aaron Philo kid was on the field, I mean, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best football ever. He did throw a touchdown, which was clutch, but I'm not really sure why he was taken out of the game. But the big story about this one was not Georgia Tech actually just proving what they're made of. I mean, Georgia Tech could cause some issues at the end of the year with Georgia, but besides that, the main story here was Cam Ward was not able to enter his clutch factor. In fact, he sold the game away on a strip sack fumble. And also, he was the reason. I wouldn't say he was necessarily the reason. Obviously, a lot of things factor into the reason why the plays didn't work, but he threw the ball on all 3 of their 4 failed fourth down conversions. He threw the ball on all of them, and they couldn't convert. 4th and 3 at the Georgia Tech 23. Take your points? No, they go for it, and they don't get it. Right out of the gates of the second quarter of the second half. 4th and 1 at the Georgia Tech 39. Cam Ward pass incomplete, no points. And then kind of down at the end of the game, they go for a 4th and 16 at the Georgia Tech 22. Just take your points. Just take your damn points. If they take their points, I mean, this game isn't a win yet, but you can fight, you can scheme up differently, because I believe it would have been because they got the touchdown. You take your points, you probably win this game. But instead, they were going for dumb 4th downs. I don't know why you're going for a 4th and 16, quite frankly. Maybe your kicker's hurt or something. I'm not sure. But the decisions to go for the 4th downs are what really killed them, because this time they couldn't convert them. And Cam Ward was not on his A game. Georgia Tech has had a pretty good defense this year as well, kind of shutting down teams to pretty little points. outside of the North Carolina game, and then I guess the Louisville game, the defense wasn't able to hold Louisville very well, but Louisville's actually much better than we think. The Georgia Tech defense has played fairly well this season, holding most outcomes to little final scores, like not that big, but Georgia Tech comes out on top in this one, and Miami freaking tanks in the AP poll. We'll see. I think it's going to come out soon in like a couple minutes to hours. The playoff poll should be dropping, so I hope to get right onto another video. But we'll see where Miami places then. I still think they should be at least in the top 10, but we'll see. We shall see. Florida at Texas. I thought Florida would after their performance against Georgia, I thought they would make it, like, difficult. And, I mean, this was an all-right prediction, but I didn't know how many injuries Florida had to their name, as well as they just turned the ball over. I did not know Aiden Warner was the starting quarterback for Florida today. They didn't even have that Graham Mertz or the DJ Lagway guy. They didn't even have them. They had this guy, I already forgot his name. Aiden Warner. Yeah, Aiden Warner. He was hideous. 12 for 25, 132 yards, and 2 interceptions. What do you want Brody to do when he's going on to his first game, probably his first game, and it's on the road against Texas? 3 turnovers for Florida, 1 turnover for Texas, 200 yards in the gap, and Texas just played better football. They won 17-49, no question. No question there. Georgia at Ole Miss. Wow, I mean, this was, I said Ole Miss needed to win this game. This was their last opportunity this season to make a name for themselves, because you tally on 2 losses. One of them was really bad to Kentucky. The other one, okay, overtime loss on the road against LSU, isn't looking too good, but also whatever. Shit happens. But you're now a 2-loss team in the conference with a win over the Bulldogs, and you're 8-2. You can win out if you win on the road against Florida, and then, of course, beat Mississippi State. That should be easy. Let me show you my prediction for this game. But if Ole Miss wins out, I think they have secured their spot in a college football playoff appearance, which, congratulations, good for them. We'll see what happens with Tennessee and Georgia this weekend, and then we'll see what happens with A&M in Texas, because I don't really know who goes to the top there. I don't really know who's going to be the team to get in. If Tennessee loses to Georgia, and then, I don't know, A&M beats Texas or Texas beats A&M, who gets in as the second spot? Because I don't think it can be Georgia if you lose to Ole Miss. I don't think it can be Bama. I'm not really sure how it gets determined. I'm not sure, but I'm not really sure how it gets determined. That's going to be interesting. I did take a screenshot of somebody they posted on Threads, because I was just on Instagram and I saw it. That video I posted about the Big Ten and having the 3 potential teams, Indiana, Ohio State, and Penn State, all going, Oregon, Indiana, and Penn State all being undefeated, who would get their appearance. Well, that blew out the window because all the team, Penn State ended up losing. But now you get the same situation. I have a screenshot of last week where the SEC's in the same position. Who's going to be the teams to get in? And is it going to be fair, or is it going to be biased? But anyways, back to this game. Quite frankly, Ole Miss straight up dominated defensively. Georgia had 246 yards of offense, which is literally that's literally how many yards of offense they had against Texas, just barely short, except against Texas they had 30 points, and in this game they have 10 points. And I mean, 7 of those 10 points came right out of the gates, literally right out of the gates. And I'll tell you why Georgia lost this game. The first half was Ole Miss shutting down defensively, being conservative and taking their points, being smart with everything. Both teams start off. Jackson Dart throws an interception. Georgia gets 7 plays, 21 yards, 3 minutes and 21 seconds to move 21 yards and score 7. So it shows you that their offense was already kind of struggling to make some movement happen with the Ole Miss defense, but they get early points. Ole Miss bounces back 10 plays, 75 yards. Georgia's forced to punt. Ole Miss goes down and kicks a field goal. Georgia's forced to punt again. Ole Miss kicks a field goal. Georgia's forced to punt again. Ole Miss kicks a field goal, punt, and a half. 7-16 is the score. Ole Miss is being conservative, taking points where it's given. Very smart. There's no reason to go for big fourth downs unless you need to. Georgia opens up the second half. They go 9 plays, 70 yards. Honestly, you just got to punch it in the end zone, but okay, take your points. Cut it to 6. But then Ole Miss goes right down the field in 8 plays and scores 6. Or actually, 6. And then they fail a 2-point conversion. And this is where the game falls apart, in my opinion. You get fumble by Georgia, punt, interception by Georgia, field goal, fumble by Georgia, Ole Miss field goal, and then a failure on downs at the end of the game. Right there is 4 turnovers. 4 turnovers back to back to back. That is just pathetic football. It looks like Nate Frazier was the person who fumbled the first time, which is a receiver. Second time, you get an interception thrown on, I guess it was a 4th and 10, so it would have been an incompletion anyways, but still intercepted. You got to make something happen there if you're such a top-tier quarterback. And then Carson Beck sacked by Princely Umanulin, wow, and he fumbled. So Carson Beck converted 2 turnovers as well as he failed a 4th down conversion. So dude is just not performing. That's my main takeaway from this, is even though one of them, you can't control what Nate Frazier does, but quite frankly, you're number 3 in the country. 20-31 is your completion percentage. 186 yards over the air, 1 interception, a fumble, no touchdowns. You're not playing like you're the quarterback of the Georgia Bulldogs. You haven't been playing like you're the quarterback of the Georgia Bulldogs. And it's not looking good for Georgia right now. They dropped to 7-2, and they have to hit another stupidly hard defense in Tennessee. And it's not in Tennessee, but it's in Tennessee. The defense is in Tennessee. But Tennessee has a very solid defense. In terms of who has the better defense, Ole Miss or Tennessee, I would probably say Tennessee has the better defense, but it is at Georgia, so there's passion. There's the home field advantage, although I'm sure Tennessee fans are going to travel for that. This is better. This Tennessee team seems to be better than the one we had 2 years ago, which that was one of the best Tennessee teams I've ever seen. In terms of offense, their defense sucked, but that's the difference about this one is their defense is freaking loaded. But I don't know, man. Georgia could honestly lose that game to Tennessee. They seriously could. I mean, it's really weird how I've kind of just glossed over Tennessee all season. They've just been like in the back of my head all season. But I do think, Georgia favored by 10. That's kind of crazy. I do think Georgia can win that game if they play better football. Carson Beck can be a good quarterback, but he's got to stop making mistakes, and he's got to dial in and play like perfect against Tennessee, and they can beat him because I think Tennessee's offense is kind of shite. But, the domination against Ole Miss definitely doesn't look good, and it has lowered your chances of, even making the college football playoff. It's lowered your chances, but huge win for Ole Miss, huge bounce back after the fart start to the year for them, but they bounce back. Michigan at Indiana, this one was surprisingly close. Indiana definitely did not look like the offensive powerhouse they have been all season. But Michigan has been, that was the one thing they had going for them was their defense. Both teams pretty much split turnovers. Both failed a 4th down conversion. One fumbled, one threw a pick. The pick being Indiana, the fumble being Michigan. But I think I was looking at it, and there was one thing that gave Michigan an easy touchdown. Oh yes, it's right here. They had a 4th and 26 at the Indiana 9 in which they punted the ball, and the ball was down at the Indiana 34. So you survive a devastating drive that just pushed you far back. But you punt it, and you only get it to your own 34, and they were at the Indiana 9. So he punted it like 25 yards, dude, which gave Michigan a touchdown. It gave him a short field to go 34 yards and score and make it close. But Indiana also kind of got a nice little field because the Michigan punter from the Michigan 26 punted it 35 yards, and then the Indiana returner returned it for 22 yards, putting him at the Michigan 39. Easy field, 6 plays, 16 yards. Indiana gets a field goal, and then Michigan's offense is Michigan's offense and goes for a 4th and 10 at their own 33. Can't blame them, and they don't get it, and Indiana just runs out the rest of the game and wins a defensive one and a close one. But this kind of looks to me like a game the Chiefs would play, a game that, like, they've got their shit together and minimal mistakes, and they end up just outperforming their team defensively that they're going against. Except Indiana doesn't rely on the refs. They don't rely on the NFL script or the refs. And Indiana's actually just a really good football team in this league. So Indiana continues to stay undefeated, and we have a super good game in 2 weeks. Yeah, in 2 weeks. Super excited for that game. Iowa State at Kansas. I got to pat myself on the back for this one. This is quite a damn good prediction, man. I've been talking about Kansas all season. I had Kansas winning the Big 12 championship this year because I know the talent that's on their team. They are loaded talent-wise. They have lost so many close games, it hurts. Like, it actually hurts so bad how many times this team has barely lost. So let's go ahead and do a little review of how many close games they've lost. They lost by 6 at Illinois, in which they had 4 turnovers, just regular turnovers, and they failed a 4th down conversion. They had 50 more yards of offense, as well as I think they also gave Illinois a pick 6, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, they gave them a pick 6 as well. Kansas did everything they could to lose that game on the road, and they still barely lost against UNLV. Again, Kansas had 3 turnovers. UNLV played perfect football. They 3 for 3 on 3rd down efficiency and no turnovers, only 25 yards of penalties. Kansas turned the ball over 3 times, 1 failed 4th down conversion and 2 interceptions. They also had 90 yards of penalties. They had almost 100 more yards of offense, and they're losing by 3 because they're beating themselves down at West Virginia. This game, they were up 28-17 with 5 minutes and 39 seconds left in the 4th quarter, and they just let West Virginia come all the way back. They just let him come all the way back. Both teams pretty much split in turnovers. Kansas had a bit more yards of penalties. They just let him score a touchdown too late. They just let him run out the clock, the drive in which they got the ball, and they just needed to put the game away. They couldn't do it. They sold the game away. Oh, that's what it was. That was when they fumbled the ball, and it was Jalen Daniels again. Jalen Daniels had a hideous start to this year. He looked really bad. The TCU game was pretty bad. They were they were down 28-27 early in the 4th, and then they just let the game slip away from them. They let him score a touchdown, and then they kicked a field goal, and Kansas just couldn't score points in the final whatever. TCU actually played worse. I mean, 500 yards of offense to Kansas is 350, but they turned the ball over 3 times, and Kansas couldn't do anything with it. Kansas just played terrible football in that one. That was their worst performance. Against ASU, this was their only game. This sounds so biased, bro. I hate talking about ASU sometimes because it sounds so biased, but this was the only game in which Kansas actually was just the worst team. Hear me out. They had no turnovers. They had less yards of penalties, and they had less yards of offense. The only reason they were in was because ASU turned the ball over twice, and still, they didn't even win the game. Sorry if I don't think I said they won the game, but the only reason they were in was because ASU was turning the ball over on scoring drives. ASU was running this team through the wall, and ASU still won it at the end. Very close at the end, but they still won it. With 16 seconds left, they threw a touchdown pass. And the interception and the fumble were stupid against Kansas. It hit our receiver right in the hands, and it just went through, and the Kansas guy picked it in the end zone. And then, like, right before halftime, our dude catches it, jiggles around, and then gets stripped. That was the only game Kansas just wasn't the better team. They turned around and absolutely thrash Houston. And then on the road against Kansas State, how to sell a football game challenge with Kansas. They had less yards of offense, but they still had the opportunity to win the game. Both teams failed a fourth down conversion, except Kansas State actually converted one of their two. Kansas just didn't convert any of theirs. And Kansas had 2 regular turnovers, and Kansas State's one. But Kansas State was up. Kansas State was up 27-26. And what do? They get the ball at the Kansas 42. They get a false start, timeout Kansas. Jalen Daniels run for 9 yards, and he fumbles. And Kansas State gets the ball. Easy field position, 7 plays, 15 yards. That's all they did, and they kicked a field goal. And then at the Kansas 46, they go for a 4th and 7 because they don't have a choice. And he runs for a loss of 1, and he fumbled, but he recovered it. And that's how they lose the game. They should have beat Kansas State on the road, quite frankly. And finally, Kansas, after playing all season, sorry for that long rant about Kansas, but finally, after losing close games, beating themselves down, or just losing to ASU because ASU was just the better team, after all this time, they get their opportunity in Arrowhead Stadium against Iowa State. And what do? They played perfect. They didn't go for a single 4th down conversion, and they didn't turn over the ball once. They only had 32 yards of penalties, and they had 530 yards of offense to Iowa State's 461. And Iowa State also played really good football. They were kind of getting beat up in the first half, but they were coming back. They failed a 4th down conversion, but they had 1 interception. And what was that 1 interception? A pick 6. That was the biggest part of the game, was a pick 6. To pretty much put the game away. That was pretty much the kill shot. ESPN is so glitched. It says that it says Iowa State gets the interception, and Kansas's score jumps up from 38 to 52. Make it make sense. These people get paid thousands of dollars to run this dog shit, and it's just terrible. But, I mean, Kansas just got up big time. Iowa State was coming back, but that pick 6 kind of put the game away. And Kansas won. Oh, sorry, I'll show the final score. Kansas won. This is damn good prediction on my part. And BYU's not safe. BYU's not safe this upcoming weekend because Kansas can perform on the road. They have performed on the road. They should have beat West Virginia. They should have beat Kansas State. And they should have beat Illinois. They have performed on the road this year. I guess you say, quote unquote, performed. They've beat themselves down in those games and performed like bad, but they also perform good on the positive side of the ball. When they're not making dumb mistakes and turnovers, they are actually a scary good football team. And BYU has been scraping by, and you best believe Kansas gave their best shot to Iowa State, but you best believe there's a lot of momentum in Kansas football right now. And BYU is shaking in their britches. They almost dropped one to Oklahoma State, who's hideous. Kind of handled UCF, but struggled. Probably shouldn't have even won against Utah. Pulled that one out of the asshole and barely scraped a win out of there. Now they have to play a Kansas team with momentum. I would not say BYU is safe there, but then Kansas also gets Colorado at home. Man, it's looking pretty interesting there. This is all saying the rankings are different. I really wish the playoff would come out already. Army and North Texas. Pause. Let's talk about this one for a second. I said this one was going to be a shootout. Army has only played in shootouts with this Bryson Daly kid at quarterback. Their only game that wasn't a shootout, he was not in the game, and they beat Air Force 20-3. Every other game, they've tallied like 40-plus points. Like, they're slamming teams. North Texas may not be the best football team ever, but every final score is like one team is scoring 40 points. Literally, every final score except for their second game of the year, they're at least scoring 35 or more points. One team is. You can expect a shootout in this game. I say 66-42. You can expect an absolute shootout in this game. It's going to be freaking high scoring as all balls. 14-3. How the hell does that happen? North Texas has not had a game this year with a team scoring 35 points or less. Or I guess 34 points or less. They haven't had a game where somebody hasn't scored 35 points or more. Army has been dropping 45, 44, 49, 42, 37, 24, 42. I guess the Air Force game, but their quarterback wasn't there. Both teams have just been ripping it apart offensively. You can only expect an offensive shootout, and it's a defensive pile of shit. How does that make sense? That's why these teams are group of 5 teams. That's why they are. Clemson at Virginia Tech. I've lost faith in Virginia Tech. You guys are stinky. Clemson's defense locked up this game. And Virginia Tech's offense looked fucking terrible. They turned the ball over 4 times. One was a 4th down conversion failure, which I don't know if that came at the end of the game or where that came at. Nope, it was just in the middle of the game. And they just, I'll show my prediction. I said Virginia Tech would win this game, of course, because I've had faith in this team all year, and now I've lost it. The 14 is even like a lie. They had a blocked field goal that they took to the house, and then they scored a touchdown on their last drive of the game. They did this all in their home stadium, dude. That is just a pathetic performance. Clemson just got their ass kicked by Louisville. I mean, this is bad performance by Virginia Tech. Stinky, stinky shit team. Colorado at Texas Tech. Dude, this is probably one of the most heated football games I've ever seen. Not even between, the players necessarily. I mean, there was some heat between the players, but, dude, mainly Colorado to the fans and Shedeur Sanders to the ball boy. And I haven't really fed into this Colorado attention that much. Colorado's kind of just been another team for me. I see all this stuff, and I definitely have done my fair share of talking about it. But, I don't really care about this team that much. They weren't, a team I was so excited to watch this year. They are definitely good this year, and it's quite interesting how they've turned their season around, or they've turned their team around. But I haven't really been too interested, and I thought Texas Tech would win this coming off of a road win heater against Iowa State. I thought they would take down the Buffaloes next and maybe make their way to a Big 12 championship appearance out of the blue, but that just didn't happen. They sold the game away. Turnover. Texas Tech has lost so many games like this year where they've put up the yards, they've put up the plays, they've shown that they're the better team, and they just turn the ball over. I mean, Texas Tech, guys, they turned the ball over 6 times. They were 1 for 4 on 4th down efficiency, 2 fumbles, and an interception. Colorado had 106 yards of penalties to Texas Tech's 80, and Texas Tech tallied 30 more yards. And, I mean, dude, when you look at it, Colorado was 2 for 13 on 3rd down efficiency. Texas Tech was 9 for 20, which isn't very much better, but 3rd down efficiency for Colorado was 2 for 13. And this defensive performance was spectacular for the most part from Texas Tech, but their offense was just hideous. They turned the ball over 6 times, and they're only losing by 14. They should have won this game. And also, 7 of those points came right at the end of the game, literally right at the end of the game, where their quarterback got strip-sacked, and, of course, Shiloh Sanders took it into the house. There was a minute left in the game. That was their game-winning drive, and instantly they got strip-sacked for 6. So they threw this game away against Texas Tech. They should have beat Colorado. But, man, let's talk about the Sanders kids real quick. Like I was saying earlier, I haven't really fed into Colorado that much. But, dude, some of the shit I saw on social media, like Shiloh throwing something back into the stands and Shedeur Sanders pressing a ball boy, dude, that type of behavior is so fucking pathetic, man. These kids are toddlers. They're so damn good at football, and their dad is their head coach. They are the spoiled little brats of this league, and it's kind of ridiculous. I don't really I don't pay attention to Colorado. I'm glad ASU doesn't play Colorado this year because I'd probably get really pressed really easy. But I mean, seriously, dude, throwing something back into the stands and pressing a ball boy is just kind of ridiculous. And on the other side of things, you got Texas Tech fans throwing shit all over the field. I know they've got a tortilla tradition, but they're also throwing other shit onto the field. So where their head coach, which was so funny, their head coach had to yell at the fans saying, dude, piss off. You're going to get us a penalty. It was so funny, man. That shit made me laugh. But, I mean, this game was heated, dude. It wasn't even like you're watching football. It's like you're watching 2 teams that are getting ready to just break out an all-out war. Even the fans are going to jump in. This shit was about ready to go down. It was about ready to go down in Lubbock, if that's how you pronounce whatever city this team is in. South Carolina at Vandy. Proud of myself for picking South Carolina here. I honestly thought Vandy would perform better, but maybe South Carolina is a much better team than we think they are. Again, they should have beat Alabama. They just threw a terrible interception at the end of the game there. They had their opportunity. They blew it. They should have beat LSU. Kicker missed the last-second field goal. They could have gone into overtime and won that game. And the Ole Miss game, they just got shut down. I mean, if you think about it, they could be a one-loss team in contention for the SEC championship right now. They could. They just got unlucky. And they shut down. They shut down Vanderbilt this weekend. So good thing I picked South Carolina on the road here. That was a difficult one for me to pick, but it seems quite obvious now. Maryland at Oregon, domination as expected. How the fuck am I supposed to predict this final score, dude? 18-39. Like, what the hell is that? Mississippi State at Tennessee. A game happened in Tennessee Stadium. FSU at Notre Dame. A game happened in Notre Dame Stadium. Bama at LSU. Wow. Dude, I said this year, the teams that I couldn't predict were Purdue and Notre Dame. They had the best of me. They ended up being like reasons I had such terrible predictions this year. Is this going to count as a hideous prediction this year? Should it count? If you're still watching right now, should this count as a hideous prediction? I said LSU would win 31-28. I know it was a downpour, but dude, after like the Pat McAfee College Game Day, suck that Tiger dick bitch, which is just the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Like, that has got to be the dumbest chant I've ever fucking heard, bro. That is so cringy. Whatever. But LSU, I thought they were, trying to bounce back. I thought they were going to perform really well here in their home stadium. I think the home stadium was the main reason they even beat Ole Miss, because that's a big rivalry. This is a bigger rivalry, and I know it was torrential downpour, but dude, they got fucked. They got absolutely picked up and tossed. And Jalen Milroe absolutely raped this team on the floor. Like, literally just dismantled LSU. It wasn't even close. Like, at the start of the game, you get down 14-3, and going into halftime, it's 21-6. And then Jalen Milroe, I mean, it's just Jalen Milroe run, Jalen Milroe run, Jalen Milroe run, Jalen Milroe run. Schlag had 12 carries for 185 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was barely even throwing the ball. The quarterback for LSU had a pretty stinky game. A touchdown, 239 yards, 27 for 42, but 2 picks. And LSU couldn't really generate anything on the floor. They were just outperformed. Like, they were just completely outperformed. The LSU defense could not stop the run game. Like, it was just too much. They got absolutely slammed. But let me know if you think that should count as a hideous prediction. I don't think it was the worst thing ever, but definitely this one was lopsided. Washington at Penn State. A game happened. This was a pretty good prediction, but a game happened. Nevada at Boise State. Dude, Boise State is trying to sell right now. They almost dropped this one. And, dude, the funniest thing about this shit, is that they barely scrape a win against 3-8 Nevada, or 3-8 or 3-7, something like that. They barely scraped this game out of their ass. And since Cam Ward had a bad game and Ashton Jeanty had a better game, he's there. Everybody's like, "How is his Heisman talk? He should be the Heisman." Dude, he had 34 carries for 209 yards and 3 touchdowns. I will say a million times, if you're getting fed the ball that much against group of 5 competition and a very solid O-line, you have to put up a game like this. It's also 3-8 Nevada. Now, I know Nevada almost beat SMU at the start of the year, but still, this team has barely managed to win any games this year. They beat Troy by 2 points, who's 2-7. They got shut out by Minnesota. They beat Oregon State. Okay, whatever. And then their other one was against East Washington, which isn't even FBS. They're like not even FCS. They're like fart balls. And you're letting this team go into your house and almost beat you. Almost beat you, man. This game, it's not like it was 28-0 and Nevada pulled a fart comeback. No, this game was close. Seriously, I mean, if Nevada didn't fumble on the first and goal. If they didn't fumble the ball, they could have won this game. They fumbled at the 1 yard line. They could have won the damn game, or at least tied it. I'm sure they probably would have gone for 2 or something and fucked it up. And then Boise State just wins the game on, they got the ball back and they just ran out the clock. Like, Boise State is that was a hideous performance. You're letting a 3-8 team put up 320 yards on you to your 400. It was competitive. I'm sorry. And we want to talk about Ashton Jeanty being the Heisman. Okay, well, I know Jaden Daniels kind of fucked up the whole thing. The college football playoff rankings have dropped. They have released. Oh, my gosh. I have been waiting so long. It's really not much different at all from the AP Top 25. And ASU's not in it, man. God, the disrespect. Oh, my God. Dude. Quick rant, man. This is the biggest pile of bullshit. They're going to put Missouri in the top 25 and not ASU. Dude, Missouri lost 41-10 against A&M, and they got shut out 34-0 against Alabama. You're going to tell, and dude, that Oklahoma finish, I don't know if you guys saw it, but they pulled that out of their ass. If you really think Missouri is a top 25 team, if you think they're going to go, so the line for the South Carolina-Missouri game at South Carolina is 12 points. It is 12 in South Carolina's favor. I think they will absolutely slam that final score. They will shut down Missouri. You really think to tell me Missouri is a top 25 team? Oh, it makes me so fucking mad. Oh my God. ASU gets screwed again, man. ASU's they're only 7-2 after being 3-9 last year. Would have been cool to see ASU ranked versus Kansas State ranked, but whatever. Fuck that. Let's have shit-ass Missouri because you guys are too scared of having a top 10 team just be another absolute failure this year. Whatever. Fuck Boise State. Fuck Missouri. I'm so sick and tired of this shit. Virginia at Pitt. Pitt has fallen off. They are gone. That loss to SMU must have just shut down the hot streak for this team. This team has been fraudulent all year, and I think we all kind of knew it. They've just been trucking along. BYU at Utah. How the hell did BYU win this game? That's the question here. Now, I do think a lot of people are saying, like, there was no penalty there was no holding penalty. That was bullshit. There definitely was a holding penalty, and it was a good call. Utah can't sell the game away like that, just absolutely holding the shit out of somebody. Like, dude, your defense has only played perfect. Dude, if they get the first down, they get the first down. Don't give it up to a penalty. Don't demoralize your fans. Don't demoralize anything. If there was anything that I would consider rigged, in quotations, would be when the play got whistled dead after he was about to get sacked in the end zone because the BYU head coach took a timeout. The stadium was so damn loud. The refs didn't know that the BYU head coach took a timeout, but it was clear that he took a timeout. So I guess they have to follow that. But, like, dude, it was so loud they couldn't hear. That's insane. That's insane how crazy that stadium was going there. A lot of people want to say this game was taken away from Utah. I do think so, sort of. But it's also just like, that's the officials have to be officials. That was something that only they were only doing their job there. The holding call was there, and the BYU head coach took a timeout. The officials are just, this is a game they will get blamed for because shit happens. Utah State at Washington State. Pretty damn good prediction for a game I did not give a shit about. I was only 3 points off, but that's our last game of this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh, also, quick note, they did keep Miami in the top 10, which is a W, and Georgia is down to number 12. Wow. Wowzers. Georgia's down to number 12. Kansas State's up to number 16. They didn't even play nobody, and they jumped up 3 spots. Iowa State completely drops out, and Pitt drops out. I'm rude to Iowa State, but whatever. Yep, that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like and subscribe would help a comment. Always helps. That's all for me. Adios.